Sarah's eyes widened as she began shaking with fear, hoping for respite. The young girl looked down at her bare feet, willing them to move, but they too failed her command. The young teen grabbed the blanket and pushed Sarah underneath it, causing her to fall onto the hard, dirty carpet. Would this be the small child's shroud of death? Hello, welcome to In My Words. The book I am reading from is titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles. This book is not intended for young readers. After each reading session, I will briefly give information about a chosen plant. I hope through my words you will gain insight, knowledge, and a deeper appreciation and understanding of this mysterious and intricate world. Though the road may be long and hard, compassion and beauty can be gained through the enjoyment of nature and experiencing its wondrous gifts. Thank you for joining me. Chapter 10, Playing Doctor. Nearing the ripe old age of 3, Sarah felt proud of herself. She felt as if she were able to do many more things on her own. However, she still was just a small child and loved to play when she was allowed to play. Sarah, Sarah, the sweetly singing teenaged voice called. Sarah didn't recognize the voice, which called her from the living room, but as a good child she came to it. Coming from beneath the pile of clothing in the bathtub, which she used as a hiding place, she entered the room. Seeing the neighbor boy, Matthew, she smiled at him and then looked at the 2 boys, which she had never seen before. Not feeling frightened because there were always many people coming and going from their house, especially when they were left alone, Sarah said to Matthew, "Scott and Joe aren't here." Not getting to finish her sentence, Matthew said, "That's okay, we're not here to play with them." Pausing, he added, "We're going to play with you." Sarah felt happiness for a brief moment, and then the strange words set in her still growing brain. "We're here to play with you." Questioning her mind, she didn't quite understand what that statement meant. With a hesitant smile, Sarah replied, "Oh." Looking down at the living room floor, a red and yellow checkered blanket lay on the floor. It had been neatly arranged as if beckoning for someone to come over to it. The teen said, "Do you want to play a game? It's a grown-up game." "Okay," Sarah replied, as her little cherry cheeks dimpled with her smile. She loved playing games, as most children did at her age. "Let's go under this blanket," prompted the teen as he lifted the flimsy material up. The 2 other children nodded, signifying their approval. Therefore, Sarah did. "Do you know how to play doctor?" questioned the teen. "No," Sarah replied with uncertainty. "I'll show you how. It's a lot of fun." A strange emotion passed over the young teen's face. Sarah could see something appear in his eyes, but she didn't know what it was. She didn't like how it made her feel, but knowing there were 2 others in the room made her feel less uncomfortable. In a raised voice, she heard the teen say, "Take your clothes off." Not wanting to do that part of the game, Sarah hesitated. Looking toward Matthew for affirmation that everything would be all right, she began to have a sick feeling in her stomach. Matthew stood coldly looking at the small child, no smile upon his face, just a blank stare. No one said anything as they waited for Sarah to disrobe. The teen pushed on Sarah's small shoulder, and fear turned to embarrassment. Her small cheeks turned bright red. Feeling nearly frozen, Sarah tried to move her hands to do the boy's bidding, but she was unable to comply. Irritation set in as the teen grabbed Sarah and swiftly removed her clothing. Sarah's eyes widened as she began shaking with fear, hoping for respite. The young girl looked down at her bare feet, willing them to move, but they too failed her command. The young teen grabbed the blanket and pushed Sarah underneath it, causing her to fall onto the hard, dirty carpet. Would this be the small child's shroud of death? A moment later, the teen climbed beneath the blanket and then removed his clothing. Feeling a waft of air flow over her fear-shivering body, Sarah saw his naked form looming over her. The checked blanket settled back to the ground as the young teen lowered himself to Sarah. Seeing silhouettes of the 2 boys standing on either side of the material, it felt as if they were standing guard. Goosebumps formed across her small body as a breeze drifted over the thin blanket. The teen broke into Sarah's thoughts, and with an eerie tone, the boy said, You will like this part. Sarah didn't know what he was talking about. However, she most certainly didn't like it so far. Laying bare on the hard carpeting, the child could feel the fibers begin to itch at her back. Yet she said nothing. She didn't like the vision before her. She didn't like seeing the large person looming over her. The teen began his assault on the young girl. Then the words that echoed through Sarah's brain and were seared within her mind forever. If you cry, you'll really get it. Panic ran through Sarah's small body. How could something that was supposed to be fun hurt? Sarah didn't understand. She looked into the eyes above her. There it was again, that look. What was that look? Where did it come from? Fearing the look that was upon the young man's face, Sarah squeezed her eyes tightly shut and unknowingly pierced her lips. A sudden burning, searing pain crept into her body and flowed through her veins. No! Her mind screamed. No! Sarah wanted to push this thing off of her. She wanted to flee. Knowing there would be no stopping the assault, Sarah's thoughts drifted elsewhere. Why did George leave with Johnny? He was supposed to be taking care of us. Well, at least for this month is what Mom said. When will he be back? I'm scared. Horror began to fill the young girl's mind. Trying to squelch her terror, she thought, he said he'd be back in a few minutes. He was only getting some groceries. Most of the time there was no problem leaving the children alone, for they fended well for themselves. But then there were the times when bad things would happen, such as now. This time adult supervision would have been very beneficial. Somewhere in the neighborhood, the 3 older children were playing with their friends. But seldom did they want to come home until they had to, and if that meant leaving Sarah home alone for a while, then so be it. This moment in Sarah's life seemed to last forever, as once again she had to turn her thoughts to something else. Seeing a tiny hole in the checkered blanket, Sarah watched as sunlight streamed through. Small particles of dust floated by like tiny feathers in the air. Keeping her concentration on the sun, she imagined herself playing in the front yard of her house. She liked the warmth that the sun gave to her. It almost felt as if she were being hugged by God, warm and comforting. She imagined herself being wrapped in arms made of love and kindness. A sudden chill crossed her body and broke into her thoughts as she felt the thin covering being removed by the 2 other boys who were in the room, standing guard. How was it? They asked in unison. The teen smiled his answer, then turned his attention to Sarah as he questioned in a demanding voice. What are you crying about? Sarah had not realized that tears were in her eyes and on her face. She said nothing. Even if she wanted to, she couldn't. She felt mute, unable to speak. Get up and get dressed, ordered the voice. Sarah did as she was told. That was the first of many times that Sarah was made to play doctor. For the neighbor boys always seemed to know when the young child was home alone. Sarah never told anyone of the intruder, for after all, who would believe her? Today's highlighted plant is corn, also known as sweet corn. So this is the corn that is edible. Corn requires lots of water, and they need full sun. They do need a great deal of space. However, I have grown them in raised beds using the square foot gardening method. In the square foot gardening method, I can actually have 9 plants in a 3x3 raised bed square foot garden. There are various types of corn. There is dent, usually referred to as field corn. There is sweet corn, which most people eat as corn on the cob. There is popcorn and flint. There are numerous colors of corn. There is one called glass gem. It's a beautiful multicolored corn which you can use for popping or even to make into a flour. Some of the colors of the corn are yellow, white, golden, purple, red, green, blue, and orange. As I said, numerous colors. If you get some of the colored popping corn, you will actually come up with a blue or a red popped corn after it has been popped. And the harvest time for this is autumn. If you are going to be using the corn to make flour with, then you would leave the corn on the stalk until the seeds have completely dried. Please like, share, and subscribe. Next week, I will highlight another plant and continue reading. If you would like to follow along with this reading, you may pick up the book titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles at Amazon.com. I look forward to having you join me next week.